operations of decimals. So we've done all sorts of things with decimals. We've rounded them, compared them, we've talked about their place value, read them, we've talked about writing them in standard form, expanded form, all the ways. Now we're going to move into operations of them. So this week we're going to be adding and subtracting decimals. So there's a couple of vocabulary words that I want to make note of before we get started. So the first vocabulary word is estimate. Now I'm going to tell you that estimate is one of those words that a lot of people forget what it means. So here's what you're going to do. So we're going to come up with a movement for this. So I expect you at home doing this, and I'm going to be asking you to do it during a small group. So estimate, so you're going to say estimate is rounding. So rounding before, so I'm going to go behind me because before. So before. Thanks for doing it. You solve. So estimate is rounding before you solve. Rounding before you solve. Rounding before you solve. Hey! So that is how we're going to remember what estimating is. Estimate is you are going to round your numbers before you solve. Estimate is rounding before you solve. So rounding before you solve. Now, the whole point of estimating is to make your life easier. If you add first and then round, you didn't make your life easier. You just added extra steps to you. Estimating is going to give you an about number. So you're going to see this symbol when you are dealing with an estimate, because the straight lines mean that you want the actual answer. The curvy lines mean that it's about. It's not straight, it's not quite straight, it's not quite the exact answer. It's about that answer. So estimating is rounding before you solve. So we are going to practice adding our decimals, and we're going to estimate each time so that we can make sure that our answers are pretty close to what they should be. All right, the second word that you need to know is sum. Today, we are finding some. What's some? Don't say, I want some more ice cream. That's not the kind of sum I am talking about. S-U-M, what is sum in math? Hey, I heard it. It's the answer to an addition problem. Sum is the answer to an addition problem. Answer to an addition problem. So those are the two main words that we're going to be talking about today. Estimating and sum. So we're going to be estimating our sums and finding our exact sums when it comes to adding decimals. All right, so let's get this party started. Okay, first, I need you to think about this. Go back. Way back. Ready? Think way long ago. In 4th grade, in 3rd grade, in 2nd grade, in 1st grade even, sort of. When you were adding numbers, if I had numbers like 32 plus 121, 32 plus 121, how would you add that? What would you do? Right now, I want you to find the answer to 32 plus 121. That is your secret word. The answer to this problem is what you need to type in the private comments today. So 32 plus 121. What I think I heard you say was, oh, that's easy, Mrs. Sigmund. I would just take 121 plus 32. And what I heard you say, I know you said it, you would say, I would make sure my place values were lined up. I would add my ones and my ones, my tens and my tens, and my hundreds to my hundreds, and I would get 153 because I only add my ones together, I only add my tens together, and I only add my hundreds together. That's what I heard you say. I know I heard it. All right, so I want you to think about that schema. Think about what you know about adding whole numbers, and let's apply that when we get into our adding decimals. All right, so let's first find our sum of this first, or I'm sorry, not our sum, our estimate of this first problem. So I have 1 and 3 hundredths, so it's a 3, it ends in the hundredths place, plus 36 hundredths. So I know that 1 and 3 hundredths, if I were to round this, so I have 1 and 3 hundredths, if I were to round this to the nearest whole number, because that's what you do when you're finding an estimate for adding sum or adding decimals, you gotta find your nearest whole number. This is a 0, so this would stay a 1, plus I have 36 hundredths, this is a 3, so this 0 would actually stay a 0. So my answer is going to be pretty close to 1. If I add correctly, my answer should be close to 1 because I rounded each of those numbers to the nearest whole number, and then I added my whole number. So my answer is not going to be exactly 1, but it should be close if I do it correctly. So let's try it out. So you just told me with your schema, you know that when you're adding whole numbers, you have to line up your place values. Well, guess what? It's the same thing for decimals. You are still going to line up your place values. So your numbers your problems might look a little uneven. They might look a little janky, like they're gonna tip. That's okay. We'll talk about how to fix that. Now let's see how this first one looks when I line it up. So here's what I do. You do what you do. I like to write my 2 decimals first. And then I just say, okay, well, there's a 1 to the left of this decimal, 0, 3. The 0 to the left, 3, 6. That's how I like to do it. My decimals are lined up. Line them up, up, line them up. 3 plus 6 is 9. 0 plus 3 is 3. Now I'm going to drop that decimal down. Drop it like it's hot. Drop that decimal down. And then I'm going to 1 plus 0 is 1. So the only difference is in whole numbers, I don't have to carry any decimal down because there's not a decimal. But with decimals, I do. I have to drop that decimal down. So drop your decimal down, and it should be lined up all the way. This whole column should be decimals. So right here, this is all decimals. Add my hundredths, add my tenths, add my ones. I got 1 and 39 hundredths. Is 1 and 39 hundredths pretty close to 1? It is. It's very close to 1. So that means my answer is probably right, unless I made some sort of adding error. All right, let's try the next one. So now I have 45 and 8 hundredths. So I'm going to look at remember your rounding to the nearest whole number is always the ones place. So I'm going to underline my ones place, circle the one next to it, the tens place. That's a 0. So my 5 is going to stay the same. So 45 and 8 hundredths is pretty close to 45. Plus 2 and 100, same thing. I'm going to round to my ones place. This is a 0 again, so that 2 is going to stay the 0, or the same. 45 plus 2 is 47. So my estimate is about 47. So my answer should be close to 47 if I do it correctly. So now let's do this. Line them up, up, up. All right, so I'm going to line my decimals up. In fact, I'm going to take it even one further and go ahead and write my decimal for my sum down here also. So go ahead and set it up. So I have 45 and 8 hundredths, and then 2 and 100. Now notice there's a place value missing here. I don't have any tens in this number, and that's okay because even in our practice problem with whole numbers we did, I didn't have hundreds in both of my numbers, but you knew how to add. What did you know was here? If there's nothing there, then what number is there? It's an invisible 0. So if you want, you could write a 0 in here, but you don't have to. All right, and now I'm just going to add them up. 8 plus 1 is 9. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 2 is 7. 4 plus 0 is 4. 47 and 9 hundredths. Is that pretty close to 47? It is. So I'm probably right, unless I made a silly math addition error. All right, last one. And then you are going to do some practice. All right, this one I have 3 numbers. So this one is a little bit different. So I have 16 and 62 hundredths. So we have 16 and 62 hundredths. If I round that to the nearest whole number, rounding it to the ones place, this 6 is greater than 5. So 6 is going to turn to 7. Everything to the left stays the same. So 16 and 62 hundredths is close to 17. Plus 4, well guess what? That's already a whole number.
Good afternoon.
All right, so 4 is already 4. And then I have 2 and, so I'm going to write this 4 here. 2 and 3/10. So I'm going to round it to the nearest whole number, which is the ones place. I have a 2 here, a 3 here. 3 is less than 5, so 2 stays the same. It's closer to 2 than it is to 3. So 2. So now my estimation problem is 17 plus 4 plus 2. 17 plus 4 is 21 plus 2 is 23. So my answer should be around 23. So now let's actually solve. Now this is going to look kind of different. So first off, I notice when I look at the number 4, it doesn't have a decimal in it. So where am I supposed to put it? So I've got to ask myself, okay, well 4, if it's just 4, what place value is it in? Well, if it's just 4, then it's in the ones place. So I need to think about that when I'm doing this. So I have 16 and 62 hundredths, and then I have a 4 in the ones place. Now here's what I like to do with my whole numbers. Listen, there is always an invisible decimal at the end of whole numbers. Even if you don't see it, you can add it there because of equivalent decimals. Remember what we talked about? Equivalent decimals, decimals that look different but they're worth the same thing. So if I were to have a 4 in the ones place, I can add a decimal to the end of that 4 and then add 2 zeros here. That's still worth 4. This is 4 and this is 4. It's like having $4.00. So when I have a whole number, I like to add a decimal and then add zeros to the end to make sure I have the same amount of place values. Now I have 2 and 3/10, so 2 and 3/10. All right, so this is where people mess up too, because when they go to add, they add all of this. Well, you can't add that. That's not the same place value. These are hundredths, and the 3's in the tenths place. So again, use what you know about equivalent decimals to make this an equivalent decimal. So I know that I can add as many zeros as I want to the end of the number. So I'm going to put a 0 here. Now I can add it. Now my decimal, my place values are nice and lined up. Now I can add it. And I'm only adding place values that are the same. So my hundredths, I have 2 hundredths. 6 plus 0 plus 3 is 9. Drop your decimal down. Drop it down. 6 plus 4 is 10 plus 2 is 12. 1 plus 1 is 2. So my answer is 22 and 92 hundredths. Is that close to my estimate of 23? It absolutely is. All right, so now you are going to practice. You're going to practice estimating and you're going to practice actually adding. And then when we're in small group today, we'll do some more practice. See you then.